Hello, Yappers, and welcome back to the Yap Trap podcast. I'm your host, Jordan, and this podcast is an amalgamation of all of my hyperfixations, be it pop culture, society, what's going on in the internet, books, TV, or whatever else I'm obsessed with for that week. And this week, of course, we have another jam-packed episode, which I am super excited for all of the topics we are covering today. It truly is a jam-packed episode. There has been a lot going on in the pop culture space, and for our deep dive topic today, we are going to be talking about who is Becca Bloom, the billionaire bride of RichTok's, and I'm really excited to get into that. But before we do, of course, let's start with a little catch up. I hope everyone is doing really, really well. I have been so busy the last few days. Basically, I was actually sick at the start of last week, which is so annoying because I was just really getting into such a good groove with my fitness and my gym and work, and I was like loving work and I was vibing, and then all of a sudden I get sick, which is always the way. Had a couple of days of work, watched the entire season 2 of My Life with the Walter Boys, and read 3 books in 2 days, and I am feeling much, much better. And I'm so glad to be back, and very, very grateful for my health. But yeah, very irritating to be sick. I'm also, not to break the fourth wall or anything like that, but I am recording this on a Monday afternoon. I literally just finished work and I'm recording this on a Monday afternoon because my weekend was just so jam-packed that usually I record on a Sunday afternoon, but I just didn't get around to it because yesterday was actually Father's Day and I was visiting my parents at their farm, which is quite a while away. It's like quite a long drive. So yeah, I had an absolutely jam-packed weekend, but it was really good. It was really, really wholesome vibes, like love spending some time with my family. And then on Saturday as well, it was actually one of my best friend's birthday party. I actually planned her birthday party for her because one of the many roles that I've had in the litany of jobs that I've had throughout my career was actually as an event planner. So I actually offered to plan her party for her, which was so fun. I absolutely loved it. Now, there are a few keys to planning a good party. Number one is having a cute invite. Now, this is so easy because we have Canva. And I will say, obviously I've got the Canva Pro account. Oh, luxurious. Being able to pull up a Pro Canva template, absolutely love it. I just love Canva so much. Like if Canva has 0 fans, I'm truly dead. So I created a Canva template invite for her, sent it out, got some RSVPs, and then I booked in for this really, really cool rooftop bar, which was actually so cool. So if you live in Brisbane on the north side, I really encourage you to check out Tito's rooftop bar. It's in Everton Park and it's actually so surprisingly good. Like the north side does not really have a lot of venues like that. So if you are on the north side and you're looking for a bar to go for a couple drinks with your gals, maybe some chippies and Aperol spritz or something like that. Like I feel like as we're getting into spring, like it's a really good place to go to. And that's another thing. Spring is springing. I am wearing a long sleeve black t-shirt right now and I'm already suffocating. So let's see if I get through this recording without crashing out because I'm feeling like overstimulated from being hot. But yeah, the weather is warming up and it's so crazy because like I don't think of myself as the sort of person of like, oh, I'm so much happier during spring. I'm so much happier during summer. But truly, the moment it started getting warmer a couple of weeks ago, I just felt like my soul coming back into my body because it's like as the weather gets warmer, we are approaching like literally my favorite time of year. Like, don't get me wrong, summers in Queensland are absolutely sweltering. So like I'm strapped in, like I know this summer is going to probably be so hot, but this time of year is just so good. I'm so excited. Like there's so many fun things to do as it gets to the end of the year. Like we have Christmas party season, Christmas, like, oh, I love Christmas so much. Guys, like I know it's September, calm down, but like spring is springing. I'm tasting Christmas in the air. I'm tasting that savvy bee after work drinks on a Friday with the sun setting. Oh, it's going to be delightful. I literally can't wait. And yeah, like just love Christmas so much. And then my birthday is 2 weeks after Christmas. Love that. And then I'm literally getting married in May next year. So after my birthday, it'll be like wedding events, then I'm getting married. So like genuinely, I'm so excited for the next 8 months. Like it's just going to be so fun. So another thing I wanted to discuss briefly is that for one of my book clubs, so I'm actually part of 2 book clubs. I'm part of a public book club, which is really cute, where you go and you go there to meet people. It's usually like a bunch of strangers, like anyone can come along. It's in a public venue. It's held once a month and you read the book, you rock up and you are there to meet people. And then I'm in another book club, which is just me and my friends. This started up as, you know, we all read the ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas. I'm sure we're all familiar. If not, it's required reading for listeners of this podcast. But we were all really big fans of the ACOTAR series. So we hosted a cocktail night where we did, A Court of Thorns and Roses themed drinks and fantasy themed food. And it was just so much fun. And from that spawned a book club where every couple of months, we're not super regular, but every couple of months we choose a book, we read the book and we discuss it, and we do a theme night for that book. So we always go really all out for like the food and the desserts, and the drinks are always super on theme to the book. And the book for this next book club is, oh my gosh, it is absolutely atrocious. And I finished it this week and I genuinely feel traumatized. So the book for book club is called Morning Glory Milking Farm by C.M. Nascosta, and I'm literally traumatized that I had to finish this book. Don't get me wrong. It's the whole thing with this book club is that we like to have things to discuss with this book. So it's not like we all go in expecting to love the book. We just want something to discuss. We want to have fun, a funny, silly, hee hee ha ha time, and to make some like really funny desserts and cocktails that are themed around the book. So yeah, this book was definitely very interesting. So for the uninitiated, let me tell you what this book is about, because if I had to read it, you have to listen to a synopsis of it. So Violet is a typical down on her luck millennial, mid-20s, overeducated and drowning in debt, and on the verge of moving into her parents' basement. When a lifeline appears in the form of a very unconventional job in neighboring Cambric Creek, she has no choice but to grab at it with both hands. Morning Glory Milking Farm offers full-time hours, full benefits, and generous pay with no experience needed. There's only one catch. The clientele is grade A certified prime beef with the manly, meaty endowments to match. Milking minotaurs isn't something Violet ever considered as a career option, but she's determined to turn the opportunity into a reversal of fortune. Morning Glory Milking Farm is a short human/monster romance novel featuring a high-heat slow burn with a lot of heart and a guaranteed happily ever after. Safe to say it is a romance between a minotaur and a human, and I truly don't know what else to say other than it was a wild ride. Quite literally, I really couldn't get down with this book because I kept picturing a cow as the main character. I kept picturing the cow from like a children's movie or something. It was horrible. Anyway, it was interesting though. I will have lots of things to talk about at book club, and the amount of like themed foods and drinks and what have you that we can do with this book, it's truly unlimited. It's truly unlimited. Also onto the wedding planning update as well. If you guys hate this, by the way, please let me know. Like otherwise I will continue to give a wedding planning update, but you need to let me know because I'll stop. Anywho, where we're at with wedding planning is I have finished the wedding website, which is super exciting, and currently just finalizing the wedding invites as well, hoping to get the wedding invites sent out by next month. And I am so fortunate as to have a dear friend who's actually a graphic designer. So she has been giving me some advice on how to make the wedding invites even more gorgeous, which is amazing. And then of course I have my trusty dusty Canva Pro account, which I'm using as well. So handy. I also have tentatively booked in a florist, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited to have my florals booked in because my first ever job was at a florist. So fun. So as a 15-year-old, I would see brides come in with their bride magazines. This was like back in 2012. So, they'd come in with their bridal magazines and they'd have like circled what they wanted. And, just going from that and seeing my boss, because I was not allowed to do the wedding florals. Like I was 15 years old. I could barely cut the stem off the bottom of a rose, for Christ's sake. Like I was not getting anywhere near the wedding florals because wedding florals are like, I will say there is a reason that it is so expensive. Obviously, florals are incredibly expensive, but with wedding florals, the care and detail that goes into it, like if you go to a florist, the best quality flowers that the florist receives, they are all wedding flowers. So like any of the flowers that they're doing, I'm sure that they have great flowers in their general flowers. Like if you're ordering flowers from a florist, they're all really good quality, but the best of the best is reserved for weddings. So florists really take weddings so seriously. And like my boss at the florist, she was so diligent when it came to weddings and just put so much care and love into it. So I'm really excited to have that locked in. And I am trying to lock in a cake. I did get a quote for a cake that was $750. Oh my God, $750. Guys, I don't even want like that nice of a cake. Like I just want like a relatively simple cake, like nothing too crazy. And I got quoted $750. I was like, oh my gosh. As we know, everything wedding related is so expensive, okay? Like that's a given. But $750, in my mind, I thought it was going to be a bit cheaper than that. I'm not trying to disrespect cake makers at all. It shocked me. Anywho, let's move on to some recommendations. I have 2 recommendations for you. And the first one is a book that I read that I actually really, really enjoyed. It's called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. And basically the plot follows Sam and Sadie, who are childhood friends who reconnect at university, and they form a creative partnership in video game design, and together they create their first blockbuster game called Ichigo before even graduating from uni or college, I guess, because it's American. There's so many great themes in this book: ambition, love versus friendship, betrayal, disability, creativity, connection. And honestly, this book was just so enjoyable. It's so funny because it's one of those books that the first 50% of the book took me 2 months to read, and then the final 50% of the book took me 2 days to read. And it's not to say that the first 50% of the book wasn't good. It was really good. It was incredibly well written. The characters had a lot of depth. The world felt so alive. The backstories felt so rich for these characters. But it was almost it took me until the 50% mark to really get to that point of, I need to know what happens next. I need to know where things are going. There is a lot of setup in this book, but I really think that setup is well worth it. It was such a fantastic book. And if you're looking for something, it was still easy reading. I would say it was quite easy reading. It was easy to follow along, but something that feels well done with well fleshed out characters and really great themes, emotional, then I really recommend reading this book as well. The next thing I would like to recommend is a documentary on Netflix. A lot of people are talking about this, and it is no wonder because this documentary is absolutely insane. I finished it last night and I'm still shook. I'm like searching for answers because I just cannot believe what happened in this documentary. And it is called Unknown Number, The High School Catfish, and it's available on Netflix. And this is a real life story that happened in Beale City in Michigan. And basically it follows a teen couple who were 13 at the time that this occurred, Lauren Licari and Owen, who receive anonymous text messages that are threatening and very explicit in nature as well. And some of these messages that are going to Lauren and her boyfriend Owen are, Lauren's receiving the sort of messages like, Owen hates you, he thinks you're ugly, he thinks you're gross. And then Owen is receiving quite sexually explicit messages. Like, this continued for 15 months and escalated to thousands of messages as well and became a whole thing. So in this documentary, the town seems to be quite small. So as you can imagine, in a small town like that with so much history, this was a mystery that really gripped the entire town. And the messages included personal details that only someone close would know. So it was really, really gripping. And the investigation starts with classmates and who could have done this. And then the FBI get involved. And there is a shocking twist reveal of who it is. I really hope that you don't get spoiled if you want to watch this documentary, because I think not knowing who the culprit is just makes it so much more shocking. But before watching it, I had already been spoiled. And I still really, really enjoyed it. So definitely check that out on Netflix. Now let's get into some pop culture news of the week. So much has happened this week. Oh my gosh, I swear. Some weeks there is absolutely no pop culture news, and I struggle to even think of things to discuss on this podcast when it comes to pop culture news specifically. And then other weeks it's like everything is happening. So the first thing that I wanted to discuss was that Chloë Grace Moretz and Kate Harrison got married, and also their wedding featured in Vogue as well. And this wedding was honestly so beautiful. The two of them have been together for 7 years and are actually very, very private. So Chloë Grace Moretz actually used to date Brooklyn Beckham, who, friend of the show, kind of. No, not really. But yeah, Chloë Grace Moretz had a really public relationship with Brooklyn Beckham quite a few years ago, and they were very on again, off again. And I just, being a similar age to them, I remember this relationship very vividly. And I didn't even realize that she was in a relationship with this woman, Kate Harrison. So honestly, so happy for her. Like I said, they seem to be quite private. For the wedding, both of them wore Louis Vuitton gowns. They both had vintage engagement rings. And Chloe's something blue was actually her dress, and it was just absolutely stunning. Genuinely, Chloe's wedding dress was so beautiful. I am definitely a traditional white wedding dress gal, but this powder blue wedding dress was just gorgeous. And even the veil was blue as well. It was just so pretty. And Kate Harrison looked stunning as well in a more traditional corseted dress, but both of them just look so beautiful. So they began dating in 2018 and their engagement was confirmed in Jan 2025, and they tied the knot in late August. So very, very happy for them. So the next story I want to cover is the People We Meet on Vacation adaptation is all happening, and I'm super excited for it. So if you're unfamiliar, People We Meet on Vacation is a book by author Emily Henry, and Emily Henry is like the it girl of the mass paperback romance market. Emily Henry is like the go-to romance author. Her books are held in quite a high regard. She's also releasing at least one book a year, and her books often end up in the bestsellers list or the, best romance book categories on Amazon and Goodreads. So her novels are quite widely regarded. She's also written other books like Book Lovers, Beach Read, and she's got these like very well-known cartoon book covers that are everywhere at the moment, but I do feel like her books were one of the first books to start popularizing this kind of cartoon style cover. But yeah, basically one of her novels, People We Meet on Vacation, is being adapted and photos have been released. The release date is going to be January 6, 2026, day before my birthday, FYI. And it is starring Emily Bader from My Lady Jane as Poppy and Tom Blyth from Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, as in President Snow, Tom Blyth, as the male love interest Alex. So great cast. I'm really, really excited to watch this. And basically the premise of this movie is that these two have been best friends for a decade. They take these annual summer trips together and their friendship is tested when feelings blur into romance. And I think this is going to be a really great adaptation. I'm so excited that we are getting more romance book adaptations. I've been saying for so long that there is so many great romance books out there that are waiting to be adapted, and I really feel like we are in our adaptation era, and I'm so here for it. The next thing I wanted to discuss was that Dancing with the Stars season 34 cast has been announced, and it is a star-studded cast. I am not gonna lie, I'm not really a Dancing with the Stars person, and I feel like Dancing with the Stars Australia is not super popular. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm wrong. There may be super fans out there of Dancing with the Stars Australia, but Dancing with the Stars in the US seems to be like quite a big deal, and they have really got an incredible cast this season. So this will be premiering September 16th, and some of the cast include massively famous influencer Alex Earle, our very own Robert Irwin. Yeah, I literally cannot believe they got Robert Irwin on the show. Like, what a great pull from Dancing with the Stars. And then also Whitney Levitt and Jen Affleck from Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, which is also just such great casting as well. And I might even watch this season of Dancing with the Stars because I just think that's really great casting, and it will be a really good, really great, interesting season. So the final pop culture story that I wanted to cover was the Wuthering Heights trailer has dropped, and this was everywhere last week. So the new adaptation of Wuthering Heights has been really hotly anticipated because it's actually going to be starring Australia's very own Margot, Robbie, and Jacob Elordi, and both of them are just such massively successful Australian actors. So to have those two cast together in this movie is going to be a really interesting pairing, and a lot of people are really anticipating what this movie is going to be like. The director of this movie is also Emerald Fennell, who actually directed Saltburn, which was obviously massively popular when it came out. So it really seems like this is going to be a very gothic, sexy, dramatic retelling of Emily Bronte's 1847 novel with themes of love, revenge, social class. But with the trailer that dropped, it was really, people weren't sure what this adaptation was going to be like, because with the photos that have been released to the press, the costumes and the casting looks a little different than the source material. So when the trailer dropped, people were kind of really keen to see what this movie would look like, and it definitely seems to be very sexy. Like, I watched the trailer and I was kind of like clutching my pearls, and I do find it quite strange. Like, I don't know why. I think so. Fun fact. Oh, should I say it? I'll say it. I actually went to uni with Jacob Elordi. Yeah, that's my claim to fame. Went to uni with Jacob Elordi, so I have met him, used to go to uni with him, did a group project with him. So seeing him act in shows like Euphoria and Wuthering Heights, where it's like super, super sexual, and I've met this guy in real life, is strange. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's a bit like, I don't know. It's just weird to watch. So I don't even know if I'll be able to watch this movie or if I'll find it too weird. Like, even watching the trailer, I was like, like clutching my pearls. Seriously. Anyway, lots going on in the pop culture world this week, but let's move on to the main segment of today's podcast, and that is Becca Bloom, the billionaire bride of RichTok's. But Becca Bloom has been everywhere the last few days, all over everyone's For You page. So the question that everyone's asking is, who is Becca Bloom and why do we suddenly care so much about her? A year ago, she was basically unknown and now she is the crown jewel of RichTok's. She's famous for quiet luxury lifestyle content, and instead of chaotic editing or over-the-top humor, she's very calmly plating salmon sashimi on a Versace china and telling you in a soothing voice about her chef's private menu, and just very casually feeding her cat and dog a bit of caviar for flavor and talking about how her chef just whipped up, a Michelin style meal for her pets.
Plate my cat's breakfast with me. Oscar and I are actually eating from matching chargers this morning. Sushi grade salmon sashimi. Our chef also made Oscar this tuna bone broth blend, which smells like a stinky sock, but to each their own. Soft boiled quail eggs. I'm just gonna give him one because Oscar's also a little bit overweight. I don't know if these eggs are really hard to peel or if I'm just really bad at it. I think it's the latter. We have some salmon roe caviar for seasoning. I'm not gonna put too much of it because I don't want to overwhelm him. Freeze-dried codfish, which I'm just gonna sprinkle. Oscar's not gonna eat these, but for presentation we have some edible flowers. I always put a blueberry in his plate so he could play around with it after he's done.
But watching her is strangely addictive. There is something about her that is just so gripping for people. It's part aspirational, part ASMR, part social anthropology. I don't know what it is about her, but she has the internet in a chokehold. So in this episode, I'm going to break down who she is, where she came from, the wedding that's all over Vogue and TikTok, and whether she's destined to remain TikTok's darling or fall into the inevitable influencer backlash cycle. So let's take it all the way back and just explore a little bit of her background and her childhood and who she actually is and how she has so much money. So her full name is Rebecca Ma, and she was raised in Atherton, California, which is actually a town known for being one of the wealthiest in the United States. So definitely not a rags to riches story. Becca was born into a tremendous amount of wealth. Her parents are Simon Yiming Ma and Heidi Chow, who are tech entrepreneurs and real estate investors. Her dad is even on the board of the Asia Society of Northern California. So basically, she's always had access to elite spaces that the majority of people could not even buy their way into. Becca is also highly educated. She studied business economics at USC with a minor in law as well. So she's really intelligent, and that comes across when you watch her videos. Her childhood hobbies included ballet, tennis, and math Olympiad, because apparently being smart, sporty, and rich wasn't enough. She had to tick all the boxes. And Becca has done a few videos where she kind of talks a little bit about herself and does a get to know me video. I'll insert a clip here.
Hi guys, I realize most of you don't know me yet, so today I'm gonna do a little get to know me session. I started this TikTok account a week ago, and it was literally for my cat, to edit that cat video at the start, and I never knew that people would actually want to watch me. So I'm from the Bay Area, from a little small town called Atherton. I went to school in Los Angeles where I studied business, economics, and minored in law. My fiance and I met at a little coffee shop in Palo Alto when he first moved down from Canada, because that's where he's from. He works in tech, and so does most of my family. I want to give my parents as much privacy as possible, but obviously they're extremely successful and they're both entrepreneurs working in tech and real estate. But that doesn't stop me from working as hard as possible to be the best I can be. I think it only motivates me. I love dogs. I have a dog right now and a cat, as you guys have seen, and I have had like 5 dogs throughout my life. Their names are Lucky, Bubbles. Okay, that was my dog. His name is Happy. I have always loved shopping and anything to do with fashion. I grew up doing ballet, tennis, and surprisingly math Olympiad as well. I hope at least one person found this interesting. If not, I'm sorry. I'll go back to regular scheduled programming.
And although Becca herself does share herself online and she shares videos about herself, she is relatively private about her family, which does feel true to what we usually know of people of this kind of wealth. And I think that's why people are so fascinated with her. There are a lot of wealthy people on the internet that share about their wealth and share about their purchases, but I feel like when it gets to a certain point of wealth, there is a lot of secrecy and there's a lot of privacy, and we don't really get access to see that kind of wealth and what these people do. But Becca is almost giving us a peek behind the curtain. You know, most people of her level of wealth would never post the type of content that she posts online in a way that feels so genuine and authentic. And I think that's why people are so fascinated with her, is because this level of luxury and lavishness is just so completely unfathomable. But the way she talks about it is just so blasé and nonchalant. She'll casually say, plating up my cat's dinner on a $3,000 Versace plate. She'll literally have a $3,000 Versace plate for her cat. She will casually wear a $300,000 necklace out and about. So how did she even become an influencer? Usually people with this level of wealth don't become influencers, because a lot of people, they become wealthy from being an influencer or from the life that being an influencer affords them. But Becca's already got that. Becca's already got the privilege and the wealth. So how did she even become an influencer? Well, her TikTok career started in early 2025, so really not that long ago, and she absolutely blew up instantly. Within 4 months, she had millions of followers and tens of millions of likes, and as of recording this podcast episode, she has 4.5 million followers, and it's still steadily rising. Unlike other influencers that are clawing their way to relevance, she didn't have to hustle her way in. Her life was already aspirational. TikTok just gave her a stage. Her content style is definitely luxury focused, high fashion, jewelry unboxings, curated morning routines, sharing what she's having for dinner, sharing her meals that her chef has prepared for her. And it's so fascinating because Becca will casually do a $500,000 Hermes haul. And what's crazy is that her content makes you feel like a friend letting you peek into her closet at Hermes than someone trying to perform for likes. And I think that's another thing that is so gripping about Becca. She doesn't need any of this. She's doing it because she likes to create content.
So I wasn't gonna buy anything. Let's start with Hermes. Most of what I bought today was ready to wear. First thing I got was this little cute cashmere white vest. It's super soft. To go with that, I got this little white t-shirt, which you can put the vest over. My friend's hosting a baby shower tomorrow, so I got her this cute little plate. Okay, what I'm most excited for, dun 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 dun, it's this giant long white cashmere coat. I don't think it's reversible. You can do an all white outfit together. I didn't see this one until I was out the door and I came back to get it. This isn't part of the haul. I recently got it as a gift. Dun, 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 dun. Hi Kelly and Matt Croc. Next we have this little Easter colored Chanel jacket. What drew me most were these little buttons. It has little like flowers, hearts, and butterflies on them. I still have to get it altered.
She doesn't pretend to be relatable or to hide her wealth. And a lot of commenters point this out, with a lot of commenters saying things like, this is rich doing rich right, or when I say eat the rich, I don't mean you, or the rich are truly riching, basically saying that this is a rich person who is doing things the right way or spending their wealth in a way that appeals to a lot of people. She leans into it unapologetically. She is rich, she knows it, and she's not pretending otherwise. And her content isn't pretending otherwise either. She's not trying to be humble, but she's also not outwardly bragging or being intolerable or nasty or pretentious about it, or at least not intentionally. There is a level of authenticity about her content that I can't even explain myself. It's the illusion of authenticity that makes her stand out. It feels like she's being herself rather than selling an act. And is she being herself? Is she selling an act? I don't know. But as a consumer of her content, it does feel authentic. I do root for her and I do really like her content. I find it soothing. I like the way she speaks. I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by her world and I want to know more. So Becca was engaged to software engineer David Pownell, and throughout the lead up to her wedding, she posted quite a lot of wedding content on TikTok, which of course is massively popular, and wedding planning content is definitely very popular. So it really grew her audience a lot, and a lot of people were interested to see her wedding planning content, especially considering, as I've said throughout this whole segment, she has a level of wealth that is just completely unattainable and unfathomable to most normal people. To see a wedding of this nature was something that was really, really fascinating people, myself included. She teased the event for months in the lead up with Hermes shopping vlogs, jewelry hauls, rare couture fittings. She was even showing some of the jewelry she planned on wearing for her wedding that her mum had gifted her. And I believe there was a Van Cleef necklace that was worth $300,000 if I'm not mistaken. She also shared some of the wedding dresses she was trying on but didn't choose. Other influencers doing wedding prep suddenly looked amateur in comparison because Becca's content just positioned her as the standard for luxury weddings, and her followers weren't just curious, they were invested, waiting to see how she'd top the fantasy that she'd been building. So that brings me on to the wedding. Becca married software engineer David Pownall in Lake Como, and it's estimated to have cost 6.25 million Australian dollars, which honestly doesn't surprise me at all and might even be a little conservative considering the level of wealth that her family has. The location was Lake Como in Italy, and the wedding actually featured in Vogue, which is really interesting because, as I said, people of her level of wealth don't usually become famous in this way. They don't aspire to be an influencer or even feature in Vogue. So it's really interesting that this is the approach she's taking and this is how she's kind of marketing herself. And it does make me wonder how her parents or how her family feel about it, or even her other wealthy friends as well. And it's just really interesting. So in the lead up to the wedding, Becca actually shared a TikTok saying that the venue alone cost $100,000 to $150,000 for 3 days and 2 nights. And that is not including any vendors at all. So no food, no alcohol, nothing, no florals, tables, anything like that, just for the venue itself. It is $100,000 to $150,000. So that is the level of wealth that we are talking about here. The ceremony was, of course, extremely decadent. It featured rainbow smoke after the kiss, a mirrored aisle, a glass marquee reception, truffle pasta, bubble machines, and of course a champagne tower. But I think one of the most alluring parts of this wedding were actually Becca's wedding outfits. So for the rehearsal dinner, she wore a vintage Chanel couture dress with an ice cream motif and Bulgari jewelry. So apparently the ice cream motif was actually sentimental between her and her now husband because they went for ice cream for their first date, which I think is really cute. And the look was really, really colorful and just gorgeous and pretty and whimsical. For the ceremony, she wore a custom Oscar de la Renta gown, Van Cleef and Arpels high jewelry as well. And again, this gown is just gorgeous. And I think what I really like about this wedding is that it feels really true to Becca's style that we've seen her portray on social media. Becca is not a minimalist girl. Yes, she may have this incredible level of wealth and, there's this stigma of, quiet luxury and, wealthy people wearing really pared back, stripped back things, but that is not Becca at all. Becca has a very distinct, very whimsical, girly style, and I think that's why she gets this rep for the riching right, because, it's not like she's trying to wear, really plain items that, only the wealthy know to look out for and only the wealthy know that that's a rich person item. No, she's wearing something that is absolutely beautiful and out there and over the top, but it's her wedding. Her wedding dress featured these gorgeous laser cut peonies, which just was such a beautiful detail. For the reception, she wore a shattered glass effect dress with Christian Louboutin heels. Again, another non-traditional look because this look was not white. It was not that traditional white reception dress that we've seen a lot of other brides do. It was very unique and just absolutely gorgeous as well. Again, like none of these things are really, I feel like I'm gassing her up a lot here, but I have to say a lot of these things are not particularly to my style. I think she's got great taste, but these things are not the sort of things that I would pick out for myself, not if I had that level of wealth. But I just like the fact that it's Becca Bloom. And she has a lot of floral imagery throughout her wedding. She likes a lot of color. She likes pink. And that is apparent in her wedding. She didn't go for a boring white wedding. She went for color and infused her girly, feminine, whimsical style all throughout this wedding. And it was clear that it was very personal to her and her fiance. And there were details in there that was special for her and her fiance. And I think the reason that I keep coming back to this point, or I keep kind of harping on about this, is because I am in the throes of wedding planning myself. I feel like I am constantly being thrown in my face what is trendy at the moment for wedding planning. And there is a very specific style that is very trendy for weddings, and it's very pared back, and people are very concerned about having a timeless wedding. Everything is about being timeless and minimalist, and how's this going to age in 10 years? And I even got swept up in that trap myself a little bit, and I was really concerned about how my own wedding was going to age because truthfully, I'm a pastel gal. I like color, I like pastels, I have a bit of a girly, preppy taste, and a lot of that is probably not going to age very well if we're being honest, you know. But what I realized, my friend kind of said something to me as well, which made me realize that if it is to your taste, it will always be timeless. And that is why I think Becca Bloom's wedding is going to have an element of timelessness to it, because she didn't go for what was trendy. She created her own trend based on her own taste and what she loves. Every look was playful, colorful, and deliberately meaningful, straying from the traditional all-white palette. Becca described her wardrobe choices as wanting to feel lighthearted and whimsical rather than timeless and minimal, and I definitely think she achieved that. Another thing that I think really endears Becca Bloom to her followers is that she has this effortless funniness to her as well. Like, she's so softly spoken, but she comes out with some really funny stuff. So basically, it was apparently storming and raining in Lake Como all throughout the lead up to her wedding, like horrendous thunderstorms. So she literally made a video about how she went online and paid 2 witches from Etsy to pray the storms away so that it wouldn't rain during her ceremony. So yeah, basically she goes onto Etsy, finds a witch that specializes in weather, and yeah, it seemed to work, because come time for the ceremony, when she's walking down the aisle, there was no thunderstorms, it had stopped raining.
We're getting married in a thunderstorm. I hired 2 witches off of Etsy to try and pray the thunderstorm away.
Even though it was really windy, the wind almost created this kind of magical moment with her veil, because as she was walking down the aisle, the wind actually blew the veil around her face, creating this kind of dramatic veil moment. So it seems like whatever she paid those Etsy witches was effective, because there was no rain and no thunder during her walking down the aisle. So good for her. Another moment that I found really adorable from her wedding is that her husband genuinely seemed so thrilled to be marrying her. There is a clip from her wedding video that she uploaded on TikTok of him watching her walk down the aisle, and it is actually so adorable because he's literally got the biggest smile on his face and he's literally clapping as she walks towards him. It's just so cute, and that's the thing. I don't know what it is about these two that are just so endearing. I don't know if I'm being wrapped up in all of the glamour of it all, but yeah, I do have a soft spot for Becca Bloom. What can I say? Like, yes, she's disgustingly rich and she has a level of wealth that is just absolutely insane, but I'm fascinated by it. And so many other people are fascinated by it too. And that's what I think it is. I just think it's such a deep fascination, or getting access to something that most of us have never gotten access to. And that kind of brings me to the next thing that I wanted to discuss, and that is, will it last? Right now, Becca is TikTok's golden girl. She is the darling of TikTok. She's polished, she's articulate, she's aspirational, and people genuinely like her. And I also think a big part of that is because sprinkled in amongst her luxury hauls and her plating up caviar and discussing her hundreds of thousands in jewelry and watches, she shares videos that give you a little bit of insight into what it must be like growing up in a family like hers.
Here's some of the weird household rules that I grew up with. 1, we didn't clap for participation. If you didn't win, you didn't get a congratulations, you got a debrief. What worked, what didn't, and what comes next. My parents always thought that overpraising participation dilutes motivation. I recently found through a Harvard research study that children who were praised for efforts over outcomes showed 40% higher resilience rates in problem solving later on. The debrief isn't to shame, it's more to optimize. Number 2, I was never told explicitly to not lie. I was more so taught that the second you lose someone's trust, it will never come back. Come to think of it, my parents never punished me for telling the truth, even when it was inconvenient, so I never felt this impulse to lie to them in the first place. First grade, I told my parents that I copied my friend's math homework. Instead of reprimanding me, they said, okay, but when the test comes, are you setting yourself up for failure? Which I totally did. When I proactively came to them with the truth, they never yelled and never shamed and just used logic. Over time, I realized that the more open I was, the more trust and freedom I was getting. Number 3, no critique without a counter proposal. If we disagreed with a system or a rule, we had to draft one that was better. I recently read that 90% of critiques stop at the complaint. Most criticisms fail because they only recognize what is broken, not what would work better within the constraint. It trained me to respect complexity and not just voice my discontent. I'm not sharing this as advice. It created anxieties and had its own blind spots, but it did shape how I approach problems, decisions, and discomfort. Sometimes it's interesting to see how the rules you didn't even know you were following shapes the way that you see the world.
And she shares financial advice and she shares dating advice, and it just goes to show you that she really was raised to have high standards for herself and the people around her, and that she really is financially literate. She works in finance. She has a full-time job. She genuinely, influencing is not her full-time job at all. She doesn't even rely on her parents' money from what we've seen online. It really does seem like she's forging her own path. And on top of that, it even seems like she founded a few businesses in her early 20s as well. So she's a very, very intelligent woman, and she really is making her own wealth and forging her own path. She's not just a Nepo baby.
One of my biggest pet peeves is when men gatekeep financial concepts by overcomplicating them. My dad always told me if you understood it, you wouldn't need 5 paragraphs to explain it. First is a stock buyback. That's when a company literally buys back its own shares to make them rarer and pricier. It's like a girl who takes down thirst traps on Instagram to make the remaining ones hit harder. So she has less posts on Instagram overall, but the remaining ones seem better and have higher engagement. Next, what's a trade deficit? A trade deficit is when a country buys more from other countries than it sells to them. It's essentially like if you're always buying stuff off of other people's Poshmark pages and no one's ever buying stuff off of your page, you're always giving money to other people and your closet's not making anything in return. Next is a foreign exchange reserve, and that's just the cash and currency a country saves for a rainy day. Ooh, it's like when your friend keeps euros, pesos, maybe an old Sephora gift card in her wallet just in case.
But history tells us that flaunting extreme wealth online eventually does lead to backlash. The internet is a fickle place, and fascination can quickly turn into resentment. So I do think that Becca Bloom is really treading a fine line, because right now, yes, she has the internet's favor, but that could all go away in a heartbeat. I think some of the reasons that she stands out for the time being is that her content is calm and soothing. It's not flashy or aggressive. She's not aggressively yelling at the camera about, run, don't walk to get this item. And her content doesn't feel braggy. She just is. She just is that wealthy. She just lives this life. She positions herself as more than just wealthy. She highlights her entrepreneurial side and her professional accomplishments, and she gives great advice. She's aspirational in a way that feels almost approachable, even though it's not accessible for majority of people. But there are risks with that. One misstep, one viral out of touch moment, or one skeleton from her past could shift public perception overnight, and we've seen it happen before. Like I said, I really enjoy watching her content, and I will be following along to kind of see where things go. But I do think that this type of rise on the internet, this accumulation of followers and likes this quickly, can have a negative result. She's gained 4.5 million followers in 6 months. That's a lot. That's a very fast rise. And of course, she has things in place. She's not relying on being an influencer to fund her lifestyle. She doesn't need this. She has family wealth. She has her own wealth, and now she has her husband's wealth as well. She does not need influencing. She does not need fame. She will be okay. If she got cancelled, she'd still have her money. But in saying that, I do think that it could potentially happen where she does fall out of favor with the public and we don't see her online content anymore. She may eventually have to stop posting. I think that she will stay relevant longer than most because she's careful, she's calculated and polished, she is very intelligent. But eventually the internet will move on. It always does. So to bring it all full circle, Becca Bloom has gone from Atherton privilege, a privileged childhood, to the TikTok main character and a Vogue featured bride in under a year. She represents a new kind of influencer, unapologetic wealth and polish rather than the relatable girl next door act that we're used to seeing and that we've been rooting for in the past. Personally, I think she will hold the spotlight for a while. I think we're fascinated with her, but I don't think she's immune to the internet's inevitable turn. But until that happens, I, for one, will happily continue to watch her unbox Van Cleef jewelry on a Tuesday and eat quail eggs off a Versace plate because, honestly, it's probably one of the most soothing things on my For You page at the moment. So yeah, that brings me to the end of this episode and on my deep dive of Becca Bloom. I really, really hope you enjoyed this episode. I actually really, really enjoyed it. It was really fun to kind of look into Becca Bloom and her background and kind of just speculate and yap about her rise and potential fall on the internet. So I really hope you enjoyed that. If you've never heard of Becca Bloom, well, you're welcome. Now you know who she is. And if you do like Becca Bloom and you wanted kind of an overview, then I also hope you enjoyed that. But yeah, that's it from the trap this week. Thank you so much for spiraling with me. If you've got a hot take, a book recommendation, or a funny story, please slide into my DMs. You can follow at YapTrap the podcast on Instagram and on TikTok, of course. I would love to hear from you guys. Please tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Tell me me what you want to hear, like if there's any topics that you want to hear about. This episode was actually originally meant to be a completely different topic. I was going to do an episode on the Vampire Diaries, but I just felt too rushed, and I was like, I do not have enough time to give the Vampire Diaries the depth and gravitas that it deserves. So in the future, there will be a Vampire Diaries episode coming, so stay tuned for that. New yaps do drop weekly. Please subscribe and please rate the podcast 5 stars if you would be so kind, and maybe leave a really nice review. And if you leave a review, I'll read it out in the next podcast. Please share the podcast with your group chat, share it to your stories, and I will catch you next time for some more overthinking, oversharing, and yapping. This is a brand new podcast, so I would love your help in spreading the word or sharing with a friend, and it would mean so much to me if you rated 5 stars. Thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing week, and I'll be back next week. Bye.